Welcome back to the Salon Success Secrets podcast, where we talk all things leadership, sales, and scaling a salon company without losing your soul in the process. So today's episode is titled, Can I Talk to You? And if that sentence just made your stomach drop a little, yeah, we get it. Because every salon owner we know has had that moment. A service provider walks up and with maybe a little too much eye contact and a quiet voice, they say, Can I talk to you? And your brain instantly goes to, they're quitting. I just know they're quitting. So, what we're going to talk about is that today. So, we're going to rewire your relationship with this sentence, not with toxic positivity, but with real leadership tools, belief shifting stories, and a reminder that the success of your company, it doesn't live in the past. It lives in the people you haven't even met yet.
So good. I think as salon owners, we can all think of that one text or that one conversation. You're like, yep, thought that was coming. What I like to say too is, what they don't tell you about opening a salon, it's not just about doing hair or skin and taking inventory orders. It's about putting your heart on the line. And if you think about it, like we as salon owners, we pour so much into our team. There's the coaching, there's the training, there's the celebrating, there's the helping them hit goals. It's fighting for their potential. It's cheering louder than they do for themselves. And then again, on that one, let's say Tuesday afternoon, walks someone you've mentored for a year, and they say it, Can I talk to you? And it's like an emotional version of getting hit by a truck in a slow motion. It can be like that. But let me tell you a real story. This just happened. This happened to me, and I'm sure you can relate to it. As one of our service providers, someone who we've coached for months, pulls me aside and she's putting in her notice. Her reason, she says it's impossible to hit the goals we set to earn for her next career promotion. If her tone is heavy, her mind is already made up. And in that moment, my heart dropped, but only for a second, because I knew the truth. In fact, in that exact same month, 5 other people were already on track to hit those same goals. And one of them had just started with us 3 months earlier. So in that moment, I could have questioned everything, lowered the standards, started spiraling into self-doubt. But here's what I learned, is we can't always change someone's belief, even when the data proves what's possible. But that doesn't mean we lower the bar. It means we get clearer about what the bar is for. We keep the vision. We find more people who believe it is possible.
I love that story. And, Jen, we obviously just talked recently about this because I had the exact same situation happen with me. And, I just want to say something out loud that most people are afraid to admit. And, that's not everyone on your team is meant to grow with you. Let me say that again. Not everyone on your team is meant to grow with you. Because some people joined your salon in survival mode. And no matter how much you coach them, they don't believe a bigger future is available. And here's the old belief that we need to really break today, that's if someone leaves, it means I failed. You guys, that belief will burn you out. It will make you question your leadership, and it will trap you into keeping people who are no longer aligned just because you're afraid of what their departure might say about you. So here's a way that we can reframe this. If someone leaves, it creates space for someone more aligned to come in. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just bless and release with grace, with truth, with courage, because I know that we say this a lot, but your salon is like a temple, and we can't let people come in with dirty feet and expect the energy to stay clean.
So good, Lindsay. It has me thinking about a recent review we got at our salon. It was for a particular stylist on our team. Shout out to Mary. And this client was just raving about Mary, about all the little touch points that she did, the neck massages, the blankets. She was just really impressed with the experience. And the thing about this client is she's been to our salon many times before. In fact, she's seen probably about 5 other service providers, including Mary, in the last few years at different times. And what I really thought about that review is I went back to look at her visits because I wanted to see, okay, well, where in the sales process could we really use to support? And it was so incredible because Mary is the one that's left on our team. Everyone else that she had seen before is no longer on our team. And so, if that doesn't give you some power and some freedom, they just were not aligning with what we wanted to create. But when Mary stepped in and gave that experience, the client felt that for herself. She didn't even know probably that the service providers she had seen before were no longer part of our company. But that is the power of the wrong people moving on. It creates that space, like you were just saying, Lindsay, to really help set the stage for the sales process or the guest or client experience that you're really trying to create and you are creating in your salon space.
That is so powerful, Jen. It almost makes you think as a service, as a salon owner, hey, wouldn't that be great if every negative review ever disappeared, if that person moved on, because it usually is somebody who's not committed to the vision. And Mary is a beautiful example of somebody who is committed to the vision. So let's really zoom out for a second. And because most salon owners we talk to are stuck in fix it mode. They're so focused on salvaging what's not working. They forget that they're not here to just babysit broken beliefs from service providers on their team, because you're really here to build a legacy. You're here to create a place where beauty professionals thrive. And if you believe that's possible, we want you to understand something really powerful. That's the success of your company lies in future employees you haven't even met yet. Let me say that again. Let it really sink in. The success of your company lies in future employees you haven't even met yet. Yes, it stings when someone leaves. But what if it's a signal that there's a new person waiting to find you? Somebody who's hungry, somebody who's aligned, and somebody who's ready for the standard that you've already set. Because we spend so much time trying to convince someone to believe. But let's stop chasing belief in people who don't believe in themselves. And let's attract people who already want what you've built and they're willing to show up for it.
Yeah, I can I get an amen to that, Lindsay. I love that. When you just said that, it almost sent chills in my body. It's let's stop chasing belief in people who don't believe in themselves, wasting our time. Gosh, that is just so good. And if you really can adapt that belief, wow, the opportunities it creates for you will be endless. And so now that we've kind of talked it out and what do I do when I hear, can I talk to you? Let's make this practical. So when someone says, can I talk to you? The first thing you can do is pause and take a deep breath. That's so powerful. You don't need to panic. You don't need to jump to conclusions. And you definitely don't need to beg. Here's what you can do instead is stay calm and neutral. Your job is to hold space, not take it personally. Another opportunity is to ask curious questions. If you feel like if you feel like you want to learn, but if you're yeah, they need to go anyway, sometimes I'm just go on, let's don't ask these curious questions. Mm-hmm. So one could be can you tell me what led you to this decision? Or what do you feel like is missing? This isn't about changing their mind. Sometimes it's just about clarity. But I'll say this again, if you feel like they need to move on, it's a gift. It's the greatest gift that you can give. It's no use in spending your time asking the question and spending their time listening to their answer. And so just remember that, and don't promise what breaks your standards. Lowering your goals to keep someone is like shrinking your crown to fit someone else's head. And the other opportunity is to end with strength. The greatest thing you can say is thank you. Thank you for everything. If, we truly wish you the best. It's that simple.
So good. Thank you for everything. We truly miss you, or we truly wish you the best. We don't miss you. No, no. And, it doesn't mean like, hey, occasionally people are just going to come in and they're not right for your culture. And that is, like Jen mentioned, the most beautiful gift when that happens. And just to wish them well, because, hey, just because they're not the right fit for you doesn't mean, that they can't go to Clip and Curl down the street and, hey, that was where they were supposed to be, where there's no goals and there's no standards and you can just do whatever. We all are creating different things. So just be really clear on what you're creating, and, miracles will happen. Because, if you've ever walked out of one of those conversations, and you've thought, maybe I'm the problem, here is your permission slip to stop, because you're not the problem. You're the pattern breaker. You're the one building something different in an industry full of chaos, low standards, and burnout. And that means sometimes people will leave, because a lot of people have grown up in households that have chaos, low standards, and burnout. And that's just what they've seen their whole lives. And they don't see a different path, But sometimes you'll meet someone even more incredible than you ever imagined. Or you'll realize all of the amazing people that you still get to work with. And hey, maybe even a former employee might eventually realize what they had, or they'll remember that belief that you had in them once upon a time. And even if they don't, that's okay. You stayed true to your vision and what you knew was possible inside the beauty industry. So next time someone says, "Can I talk to you?" let your inner voice respond calmly. Yes, yes, you can, because I can handle it. And because on the other side of every goodbye is a space for the right hello.
Space for the right hello. I love that. So, salon owners, if this episode hits home, share it with another salon owner who needs this reminder. And if you're ready to build a team who believes what you believe, join us inside Salon Business School, or grab a seat at our next challenge, salonsuccesssecretschallenge.com. Links are in the show notes. And we are so grateful for you, and we'll see you next time on the Salon Success Secrets